Hey guys, I'm Voylin and I would like to introduce you to the perfect travel route for people who come to Japan for the first time. So for your first time in Japan, do you want to see as much as possible but not spend all of your time in trains going to far places? Do you want to see culture, nature, city life? Do you want to have a taste of very good Japanese foods, go hiking, see a lot of temples, even have a free guide that shows you around and teaches you about the history of Japan? Do you want to save money so you can buy more souvenirs or sake? Well, look no further because I present to you my travel route, which I always recommend and which I have called the Golden Triangle. The Golden Triangle route recommendation is for everybody who wants to experience all those things in one trip and in a very efficient way. So efficient that you can experience all those things in just a week. The cities that form this Golden Triangle are Osaka, Nara and Kyoto. The travel distance is so short that it doesn't really matter where you start, but my recommendation is starting in Kyoto, as that one is the furthest away from Osaka airport. So if you follow this travel route, you probably land at Osaka airport. It's the furthest away, so you can slowly come back to the airport. Would be the most efficient place to start at, in my opinion. But why exactly these three cities? Let's go over them one by one and why they are so special. So let's start with Kyoto, a place that probably everybody who knows something about Japan probably knows about. Everybody, even people who don't know much about Japan, have heard about this city. Because it's the best place for temple hunting in Japan, with over 1,600 Buddhist temples and around 400 Shinto shrines. There's sure enough places that you can explore if you like those kind of things. So Kyoto is the best place for temple hunting in Japan. There are also some shrines and temples scattered in the mountains around the city, so if you want to escape from the busy city that Kyoto can be sometimes, you can easily go into the mountains and go temple hunting there. For the animal lovers, there's also a mountain filled with monkeys. There's also the famous bamboo forest in Kyoto. However, if you want to avoid all the big crowds and want to see a big natural bamboo forest, you should go to Fushimi Inari and take the secret path. You will end up in a forest with some very beautiful views over nature and the city. It's kind of in the mountains, so sometimes you have a very nice view. Big forests, you can see a lot of wild animals, birds and such. So if you really want to see a bamboo forest, go to Fushimi Inari instead and just take the secret path. It's not that secret. For the people who like strolling around, go to the Philosopher's Path. It's a nice walk, but honestly, on my first trip I spent 10 days in Kyoto and I never took public transportation. I just strolled around, and everywhere where you will end up going, you'll be greeted by friendly people, beautiful buildings and architecture, and it's just a nice experience no matter what you do there. Just go walking and you'll probably find something worthwhile. And for the people who like bird spotting, there is this very long river that runs through Kyoto, and it is home to so many different types of birds. It's one of my most favorite places to sit in the evening and watch if I'm in Kyoto. Another thing you can do in Kyoto is have a delicious cup of green tea in one of the many tea houses. Another recommendation, if you want to see a garden maintained still perfection, visit the Japanese gardens in Kyoto. It's just something you should do in all cities in Japan because Japanese gardens are just great. Something that also recently became quite popular is renting a bicycle to ride around Kyoto. It's cheaper than taking buses and trains, public transportation. It's a little bit more expensive than just walking around, but it's probably the quickest way to explore the city. For the people who like museums, you can go to the Train Museum or the International Manga Museum for people who like that kind of things. On my first trip in Japan, Kyoto had a very magical feeling because of the history that, if you stroll around, the history still feels kind of alive because of all the old buildings that's still around, all the temples, people dressing up in kimonos, it may be just foreigners dressing up in kimono, but it's a very nice city to stroll around. It's very energetic, there's always something to do, always something to see. And it's really one of the best cities in Japan, like many travel brochures say. But try to avoid the big cultural spots like the Golden Temple and such. There's so much more to see in Kyoto. It's a very nice city with a lot of things to do. So now we are leaving Kyoto and we will head to Nara. So we just came from Kyoto, the city most known for history, culture and temples. Now we head into Nara, which is filled with nature, but also with quite a lot of history. To start, my number one recommendation here is to apply for the Nara student guide. That's basically a university guide that will be assigned to you as your guide, which will guide you through the city. It's kind of a club activity for them to practice their English and learn about history and such. And it's also sponsored by the government, so their English is quite good, and the amount of places that they show you within a day whilst talking about all the history and all the details. If you have a question, they'll probably know the answer. It's quite amazing, and the best part is it's free. And the word free may scare many people away, thinking it must be kind of like a trap, but it isn't. You only have to make sure that you cover your own expenses, like your entrance tickets to the temples, by example, or if you take the bus, that you cover your own bus tickets. There's also a toy museum in Nara. It's a bit small, but it contains a lot of old Japanese toys which you can play with. Or if you want a bigger museum, Nara National Museum. I haven't been there personally yet, but I've heard it's worth a try. There's also a popular sake tasting place, which is good for people who want to try out different kinds of Japanese rice wine to see if they like it or not. I think almost every single time when I go to Nara, I go there. And also as a souvenir, you get a free sake cup. And you can choose which color you want. Some seasons have different colors. And for the people who want to do some hiking in Nara, there's also a mountain which you can climb with an amazing view over the city and the surrounding areas. There are also deer on top of the mountain, which is kind of surprising if you get there first. And there's also whole paths that goes into the mountain with a waterfall and such. So if you have time and you want to go for a hike, it's the only mountain that directly is attached to the city. However, if you go there during summer, take mosquito spray, as they are everywhere. And they really prefer some foreign bloods. And just like in Kyoto, there are many temples and shrines which you can also visit in Nara. And of course there's also Nara Park with a lot of deer running around. In the morning sometimes they have feeding sessions which you can attend. Personally, my most enjoyable thing to do in Nara Park is sit down on a bench and look at all the foreigners getting attacked by deer whilst they're trying to feed them. That's just nice. There are also some beautiful gardens to see in Nara, so again, same like Kyoto, visit some gardens.
Although the city is quite small,
it basically has everything you need. If you want to relax in the evening after a long day walking or hiking, by example, be sure to visit one of the small centers which are scattered around the city. There's nothing so relaxing as getting naked with other people that you don't know in a very steamy room while sitting in a hot bath. And to finish that experience, be sure to get some milk from the vending machines after getting out of the onsen or sento, and drink it like a real Japanese person with your hand in your waist. Overall, Nara is a very relaxing city just to stroll around in. It's very calm, very relaxed atmosphere, a lot of nature around. And most buildings are also kind of old, so it just feels like going back in time. And Osaka may be known for food, but in Nara you can also have very delicious meals. There's even a food bath restaurant where you can have a nice food bath whilst eating your lunch or dinner. And if you want to have a real Japanese ryokan experience, the kind of old hotel experience, you can stay at Mikasa. They have a free shuttle bus which takes you to and from the hotel, because the hotel is kind of in the mountains. And at the hotel they also have 2 onsen which you can enjoy together with a delicious dinner and a typical Japanese breakfast. That's not inside of the onsen, that's in a separate room. Although Nara is a
small city,
there's so much to do, and honestly I spent it only one day, and if you stay there only one day you will regret it, so please try to stay there for more than one day. And at this point we are heading to our last city of the Golden Triangle, the last corner of the Golden Triangle, Osaka. So what can you do in Osaka? In Osaka you can basically discover the more modern Japan with a lot of traditional dishes. And if you stay in Osaka, try to stay in Tennoji. This is because Tennoji is very central and you can easily go to all the different parts of Osaka without taking too much public transportation, so it saves you money. Plus also Tennoji area is a lot cheaper for hotels and such to stay in. So just note. My first recommendation, if you want to see how much Japanese people like onsen and sento, go to Spa World. It's the biggest Sento onsen park in Osaka. It's in a building with a couple of floors. They have an European theme and an Asian theme. It switches each month, like one time the Asian theme is for the woman and the European theme is for the man, and switches every month. So really depends on which time you go, which spas you will be able to see. It is probably one of my more favorite places to visit in Osaka, except for now with the whole pandemic situation. It's kind of not recommended to go to those kind of places, sadly enough. For people who wanted to go to Akihabara in Tokyo, or like seeing like manga things, anime things, electronic things, there's also a place in Osaka which is kind of like the otaku paradise, and that's called Denden Town. It's a bit smaller than Akihabara, but still worth strolling around in, with a lot of cat cafes and maid cafes. I'm not really a fan of those like animal cafes, but some people like them. You also have a lot of electronic shops in that area, a lot of anime shops, a lot of gacha. Another thing you can do in Osaka is go shopping in Japan's tallest building, Harugas. Or if you have enough money, you can stay in the Marriott Hotel, which is the hotel on top of the building, well, towards the top. You get a very nice view from the rooms, and it's a little bit expensive, but it's kind of worth it, I think. I'm really glad I got a chance to stay there once, as the view is just amazing. And if you can, get a corner room, because then you even have a window next to your bath. Another thing you can do at this massive building is go to the observation deck. They have a garden, which one is free, which also gives a nice view. But they also have an observation deck. If you pay a little bit, you can see it. Well, it's not a little bit. That's kind of the problem that I have with that observation deck. Abenos 300 or something. I don't know the name anymore. The paid observation deck. It's, if you have enough money to spend, go for that view. If you want to have a free view over Osaka, go to the free garden on top. Just follow the escalators all the way up until you reach like a Star Warsy room, and then you have access to the free garden with a nice view. And of course, food in Osaka is very popular, and for that you really have to look up things yourself, as there's so many places, way too many places to recommend here. There's this one special izakaya type restaurant where you can drink alcohol and such, and eat next to a graveyard in a giant tent. The place is called Toyo, and I will have a link to that in the description. Same with most of the other things that I'm explaining in this video. And maybe you want to go to a Japanese attraction park, so for that go to Universal Studios Japan. Or maybe you're more a fan of big aquariums. Well, Osaka also has a very big aquarium. There are also boat tours you can take that go through Namba. But this one is also quite touristic and can be very busy. Something I really recommend is go to Osaka castles just for strolling around. There's always something to do. The first time I went there were a lot of minions. There are also people like performing around Osaka castle, and most of the time they're also birds. And for the people who like museum, be sure to go into Osaka castle, as there's a very big historical museum, and also you have a nice view from the top of the castle. And talking about museums, some of my most favorite museums are also in Osaka, like the Housing Museum. I think it's called the Museum of Housing and Living. And they even have like this replica room, like a giant room of like a part of a city. And it even has like its own day and night cycle, which is quite nice to watch. And Osaka maybe is a very big city, but there are also a lot of temples and shrines to visit. They're a little bit more difficult to find between all the big buildings, but they exist. And when you get tired of the city, go on a day trip to Sakashi, where you can buy very high quality Japanese knives, have strolls. It's also quite a nice area to like stroll around with a lot of nice temples. And there's also Daisen Kofun, which you can see, which is a very giant thing. It's also called the Mozu tombs, and they're very big keyhole-shaped graves, and it was recently announced to have become UNESCO World Heritage in 2019. But if you want to escape the city in a more natural environment, you can also go to Mino Park, which has monkeys apparently, and a waterfall. The waterfall is always there, the monkeys are not always there. Same like my advice in Kyoto and Nara. In Osaka, just stroll around. There's so many things to do. You will find something to do. So these three cities, they're quite different from each other, but they easily show you 100 sides of Japan. and it's almost impossible to get bored in those 3 cities alone. So this is a travel route which I would recommend for first time visitors of Japan, of people who don't have much time but want to have like a week trip in Japan. 3 cities. In those cities there's so many places to go to, and you basically see a little bit of everything from Japan. If you have all the recommendations of places to visit inside of those cities, or maybe you have your own golden triangle or other cities which you would recommend. So if you have those, put them down in the comments below. But Japan is such a diverse country with so many things to do and explore, so honestly it doesn't really matter where you visit Japan on your first trip, because I'm sure you'll probably have a good time anyway. This is just my recommendation, my opinion, and I promise if you follow this recommendation you won't be disappointed. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you guys learned about a couple of new places to visit, and maybe you got more inspiration for your own trip to Japan. So thank you guys for watching, and have safe travels. Bye bye.